Good evening. The news gang is here, and no, it has not been gagged. And tonight, all that glitters could be fake, but it could also be a recorded phone call and lots of politics. Who is competent enough to tell us about CBC? We examine Magoha's lesson plan, Sosion's resistance, and a country in confusion. Also on the show tonight, whether you like it or not, is that the new mantra in government? We'll of course have the kicker, the memo, the take, the punchline, and the angle. But let's start in Kiambu. Ferdinand Waititu arrested and subsequently released. Here is what he had to say about the whole saga.
All my political opponents have been calling for my even sacking, thinking I can easily just be sacked. Let those who are in Kieleweke campaign for Kieleweke. Yes. Let those who we are in Tagatanga under the leadership of His Excellency the Deputy President, we continue with our line of support. All my political opponents have been calling for my even sacking, thinking I can easily just be sacked. Let those who are in Kieleweke campaign for Kieleweke.
Francis.
Yes, I knew you would start here. In fact, let me put it this way. It was not unexpected that Ferdinand Waititu would be arrested. It was pretty obvious at one point that he would be arrested. And in fact, one would even argue that the arrest has delayed since the discussion around his arrest and so on began. But it is the drama with which he was arrested today, and also talks about the arrest and the dramatic arrest of other governors and other public officers alleged to have participated in one form of corruption or the other. And the question is, what was it? An arrest? Was it a moment of questioning? Was it an evidence gathering escapade by EACC? What was it? Because eventually you saw the Kiambu court issue an anticipatory bail. I've had lawyers argue whether it was right or wrong, whether it was after the fact or not. But Linus, look, the drama around the arrest of Governor Waititu, I saw on social media people saying, so what? Another PR exercise.
Francis, I mean, putting it in the broader context, if you looked at our bulletin tonight, from story 1 to I think story 5 or thereabout,
right,
and even the bulletin, news stories across the week, one would be forgiven for thinking that Kenya is one scene of crime. I mean, the police inspector general should walk along our borders and run that yellow tape that says do not cross.
Police line.
Police line. This is a crime scene. That is how it feels right now. But coming down to Waititu, it's very interesting that in his defense, he has quickly, very quickly and swiftly gone to politics. He's introduced Tangatanga, he's introduced Kieleweke, he's talking about his political opponents. But from our earlier reports, what was found by the investigators include about 28 or 30 title deeds that are in the name of his family members or close relatives. Companies associated with the family that were doing business with the county government of Kiambu. Properties that are under construction. These are some of the details that we are looking forward to seeing once the EACC puts together the paperwork to say that this is what Waititu would face in court. But just in concluding this, I also want to say that there is a script that seems to be developing about county governments. The nature of the questions that they are facing are very, very similar. It sounds to me exactly how it sounded when the Samburu governor was being arraigned. These governors, did they drop their guard as regards to public spending or even how they conducted their businesses in the county? Did they forget it's an accountable process? Did they all get their relatives into trouble. I think the paperwork from the ESCC, Francis, will be interesting.
You speak about drama, yes. Joe. I'm sorry, when you mentioned drama to Linus, I want to talk about the drama today, especially about Waititu, where the officers raided his home in Runda, I think at 5 a.m. Yep. I think he was seated down having breakfast with his family or something when they came, and they took some hours searching the house, and they carted. They took about 6 hours in his house. Some of the detectives were in Runda, where Waititu was, and others were camping at Bellcrest Gardens on Githunguri Road in Kileleshwa, where he has another home, and they carted away a pile of documents and evidence, and that's where the 30 title deeds you're talking about, Linus, was part of it, and they're saying there is even documentation about plots that the governor owns, about some that have been developed, others that are under development, and all these issues about being in the names of his family members, because even his daughter was taken away with him, and she was questioned for some hours.
Together with the wife,
and they were released afterwards. On this particular case is about a tender worth 588 million. This particular one, companies that are associated with Waititu and members of his immediate family, money was they awarded themselves the tenders, or companies that are associated with them, tenders worth 588 million. This is just one of them. Gachuri, I'm sure there'll be a lot more in terms of what is going on in the county of Kiambu. We have the Car Sober campaign. Remember that there are a lot of questions surrounding it. Remember when the governor was before the Senate committee, there are a lot of questions about how money is being spent in the county. I think this is just the beginning for Waititu's woes.
I think, Francis, after the Car Sober initiative, I would have expected a bit of sobriety from the governor, because there is a trend that is emerging in the country that is extremely disturbing, where people use politics to easily wish away very serious things, because the governor there is saying, hey, sisi ni watu wa tanga. I mean, he's for the first time actually saying in broad daylight in front of the cameras that the Deputy President of Kenya is leading a certain movement called Tanga, whatever movement, initiative, whatever it's called, because up until now, all of these people actually have denied the existence of a tangible group called Tanga. Everybody else talks about it, but here he is saying that this is happening because I belong to Tanga, a certain group in government that is led by the Deputy President. But I think that it also speaks to that attitude that is called utadu, because the brazen nature of the things that we have seen county governments accused of, it's marks of this idea that there is nothing that's going to happen to me, because some of them are so open. I mean, in this day and age, assuming that all these allegations are true, who does something and then throws some money into the daughter's or the wife's account or whatever, because that's the first place that all these investigators would look. Yeah. So it seems to me that there is a certain attitude that developed with the governors coming in place, that actually this is a very powerful position, nothing is ever going to happen to me. That is why you see governors doing all manner of things out there and without a care in the world, because they believe that they are small gods out there. They're in power and taking power in a very literal.
And I wanted to ask, would you blame them for being so brazen? Because, you know, what's happened to anyone, you know, who has been charged with corruption? We haven't seen some high-profile ones, but I also just wanted to add to the fact that the first thing you would expect when, you know, someone is released on anticipatory bail or whatever would be, I strongly deny these allegations. This is not me, this is an issue. But the first thing you launch straight into it is, watu wa kieleweke wa campaign huko, sisi wa tanga tufanya hivi. And just to add on to the fact that the Car Sober initiative that you had talked about, Jamila, was questioned by critics. Huh?
Yes.
And these are people who work with recovering alcoholics, saying that the idea of paying people to stay sober was never going to be a sustainable one. They were paying about 5,078 addicts 400 shillings per day, 5 days a week, which meant 2 million shillings a day was being spent by the county government. And then they were being given manual jobs like clearing bushes, trenches, and drains. But then, if you recall, there was also that little spat that Governor Waititu had with Governor Sonko. Remember when his buildings, and there was that leaked phone call that he had, his wife was subsequently arrested, and she was charged actually in a city for flouting city planning bylaws. for that building that they had, which then went on. So, I mean, there's so many issues that come up. Forget just, what's happening here. But I dare say...
And after the deputy president actually told all of us that, look, this guy shouldn't answer all these things of the national government. Please ask him about Kiambu. I would have expected him to be giving some answers today now that he's actually being asked about Kiambu.
Exactly. And I would just like to add that, this has been the subject of conversation. Certain publications taking us back to when he was, a councillor, when he was in the municipal council, when he was an MP and a governor, taking a look at his salaries and all of these properties that he owns. Now we're hearing of 30 title deeds, at least. Maybe, there's more. Who knows? But these are all of the issues. He has had issues about his integrity for a while. But I dare say, I don't think this is that moment for him. I mean, I know people think he's in trouble. This just seems to me like it'll blow over like a number of the cases we've done. Perhaps I'm a cynic, but I'm yet to see something. I mean, what we saw with Samburu, what you reported, some massive things that were happening there.
Nothing.
But Linus, look at it also in context. The politics. You remember when the governor went before the Senate, you saw the excitement with which the senators, mtaani tunasema walimchangamkia, and that has been the system around governors when they appear before the Senate committee. There's that kuchangamkiwa. And then introduces the question of politics. Is it the fight against corruption or politics, national and also succession at the county?
Politics works as a defense against corruption. It's been employed before and it has worked. Where people say, they are not targeting me, they are targeting you as a community, they are targeting you as the supporters. That is what they are trying to do here. You see how the governor plunged directly into the ongoing games between Tanga Tanga and Kieleweke. He's basically saying, I'm being victimized. Forget about the title deeds. It's not about the title deeds. It's about 2022. It's about the deputy president. Because it's a card that works. But coming to the issue that actually then separates the waters, when the court case begins, the ball game changes completely. And we don't need any other illustration but that of Dr. Evans Kidero. Kidero is in court. The first time he was going to the ESCC, there were crowds there. There was a lot of politics around that. That happens in the initial stages. Waititu can walk out of a very suspicious bailout because there was this anticipatory bail that has been questioned by some lawyers that, what is the legality of that. He can walk into a crowd and he can enjoy that moment. But there's something very cold about the dock in court. And that moment will come, especially if the ESCC, the DPP, get their act together, get their evidence, get their paperwork together. You don't need all these politics. Take these things to a court of law. Court of law operates in a very, very different way. Leave all the noise out there. You enjoy the crowds, but the specifics of a charge, you must address them in court.
I want to throw this to the table.
Okay.
Currently, there's a huge debate in Parliament, the National Assembly versus the Senate, on the amount of money that should be allocated to the county governments in the financial year 2019-2020. The Senate is insisting on about 326 billion. The National Assembly is saying, okay, let's do 316 billion. But still there are questions about the amount of money that is devolved to counties vis-a-vis the question of accountability. Is it the question of give us more, but we don't want to account for it? And secondly, is there a question of devolution of bad manners? That which happens at the national level is also happening at the county government.
Actually, whenever the Auditor General reports come out, every time we have the Auditor General reports being tabled, and then we have him speaking, and we always have discrepancies. We always have question marks about almost each and every county. In fact, we were all shocked when we were told that in the Makueni, I think, and was it Laikipia County? Nyandarua counties are given a clean bill of health in terms of audit terms. We're thinking, out of the 47, only 2 counties are actually able to sort of account for the money that has been given. And I think that's the worry, that when the money is given in the counties, is it used the way it's supposed to? We have all these governors coming before the Senate committees to account for the money that have been given to them, and they're unable to explain. Instances of, is it Migori County, where you're told I was unable to account for it because offices iliungua, receipts iliungua, we are unable to account for this money. So why give them more when they can't even say how they used it. We talk about governors who are being questioned by EACC on corruption allegations. We had Muranga Governor Mwangi wa Iria this Wednesday was the EACC offices in Nyeri over controversial purchase of a 10-acre piece of land in Kabati at an alleged inflated price of 390 million. When you hear such things as a Kenyan, as someone who's in the counties who's expecting to get services and they don't get it because you're not sure how this money is being spent,
I think I see it differently. I do not believe that those two issues should be looked at together, in the sense that there are many places, including the national government, where we keep putting money, we pay our taxes all the time, and they do very many bad things there. I think that we have to do these two things hand in hand. There is no doubt that the counties need more money. And that does not take away the fact that the governors who engage in what we are calling bad manners, they have to be brought to book. I mean, you cannot say that there might be a governor somewhere, say, for example, Professor Kivuda Kibwana, who's doing an amazing job there without a whiff of corruption or whatever, and then you're saying that, oh yeah, all these governors are stealing, so don't give Professor Kibwana more money to develop Makueni. So I think that we have to strengthen our ability to bring people to book and then give counties the money that they deserve. But to continue using this excuse that because there are few crooked governors, therefore you will keep all the money in Nairobi, I think is hypocritical. We need to look at this as a question of, are we bringing people to justice when they mess up with Wananchi's money?
Yeah,
and Joe, sorry, the national government cannot cast a stone.
It's
not doing any
log
better
on its eyes.
Yeah, it has a log in its eye. So you can't even argue that devolution money is being wasted in the grassroots, because where would you like it wasted? Up in Nairobi.
And that's the thing. I just wanted to add on to the idea of, so do we give counties less money because they're misbehaving? And some argue that that would be penalizing the residents. And then yet others say, but even if we continue to give them money, the money isn't going to the residents to begin with. But it is actually something that is anchored in law and that a lot of people have been talking about. And that's Article 225 of the Constitution, which talks about financial control and says that if there is a serious material breach or persistent material breaches of the measures in the PFM Act, that's the Public Finance Management Act, that there can be a decision to stop the transfer of funds or to reduce it by half for more than 60 days. But everybody is wondering who triggers this. Is it the CS of Treasury? Is it CS devolution, and what would these serious material breaches be? But many people then say, why hasn't this been effected? But even if it is, as Joe says, why not catch the criminals? And then that sends a message to others, because it's a very dicey situation. You stop money going to the counties and then they lose out altogether, or you continue to send it and you know there's been serious breaches of finance.
Yvonne, you speak about criminals, and Elon Luvanda on Twitter says, Waititu is arrested and freed. A woman is sentenced to 30 years for bang worth 2,820 shillings without option of fine. Is this that our prisons are for the have-nots while the corrupt haves are to walk free? Remember that story?
But the circumstances are very different.
But still, 30 years in jail after she was found guilty of trafficking bang worth 2,820 shillings.
Repeated offender.
I still think it was unfair. Anyway, that's just me.
I'm looking at, lastly, look at the other governors on EACC's radar. I mean, Mudhomi Njuki from Tharaka-Nithi, Mwangi wa Iria from Muranga, John Nyagarama from Nyamira, to mention just to mention a few. I mean, it seems like there is something that EACC needs to do to ensure that public money is spent well, prudently. Otherwise, iko shida.
True. I mean, the list would be quite long, considering what we've just illustrated here as the suspicious questions. What are the areas? Where are the red flags when it comes to spending in counties? Principally, it's in how they execute their projects. Which company is involved, and is it delivering? And the other sad thing that always doesn't come out about the counties is how much they owe suppliers.
Pending bills.
Pending bills. They owe them a lot, especially those who do not have connections to the center of power when it comes to the county government. So I think the EACC, and I hope they're out there, the DCI should be out there And I think what would come out is going to shock 47 times, just as the number of counties.
But Joe, what do you expect of a governor who spends about half a billion shillings to campaign for that seat, gets it, and the salary of a governor is about $1 million shillings.
Sorry, what? He spent $500 million.
Governors have spent up to 500 million shillings.
Who told him to spend it? I think it's. I mean, when you spend a certain amount of money, you had better know how to get it, but not from the taxes of the wananchi. Senator Enoch Wambua says the fact that we have thieving governors in office can't be justification to deny counties more funds.
Yeah.
Those funds do not belong to the thieves. The EACC, DCI, and DPP must round up the thieves and herd them into the courts to face the full force of the law. Shall we take a break?
Yes, we shall take a break. News Gang takes a break. A fully constituted News Gang is taking a break. We'll be back shortly. There's more to talk about. There's gold, there's curriculum, there's SMEs. We'll be back shortly.